Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to take a little step back and look at Polkadot. So before we started recording, we've been kind of pre-gaming, and then we realized we needed to just take one step back, get some perspective on what's going on with Polkadot, and we wanted to evaluate and compare Polkadot and Kusama, see what's been going on Kusama, and what our expectations are for Polkadot, and we ended up kind of understanding that there's a lot to comprehend here in terms of our experiences in the past with different crypto projects launching, and we kind of wanted to talk about that. So let's first look into Kusama. So Kusama is the sister chain of Polkadot, and what it's designed to do, it's really sort of like it's sort of like a test net, like a community test net, but it's a real blockchain with an actual community and like an ecosystem and everything. So if you go to polkadotjs.org and then go to network and click on Parachains and then go to Crowdloan, you can see the list of projects that have essentially deployed on Kusama network and the ones that are looking to deploy on Kusama network. So we ended up counting all these. There's about 21 of them. And so all this means is that out of the 100 Parachain slots available in Kusama and eventually in Polkadot, there's about 21 filled slots. So then we were thinking, is that a lot? Is 21 a lot for something as big as what seemingly Polkadot could be? And we were talking about how when you look at Ethereum's, like we know pretty much every single developer in the crypto space has started with Ethereum. And we know that there's thousands of projects on there because there's thousands of cryptocurrencies, and most of them are ERC20s. And then you look at Cardano, and it's like you really don't know how many projects are on Cardano, right? And Tezos and all these other platforms. So 21 doesn't sound like a lot, but we also don't have like a quantifiable list for all these other platforms out there. So it's kind of interesting to think about. So we have the 21 in Kusama, and then on Polkadot, there's about, what is that? 10?
10, yeah.
Yeah, 10 projects. So what we're saying here is that out of the 21, typically a project will launch on Kusama first, and then they'll launch on Polkadot afterwards. And so, the max that we'll see on Polkadot would be the 21. So yeah, I mean, it's just, just an idea of like, let's take a step back and see what's actually happening. And I think it's really difficult to determine the value of Polkadot just so early, because remember when Vitalik launched Ethereum, it wasn't like he had thousands of people like, launching ERC20s on day one either. So it's going to take a little bit of a time to get some of these things going.
One thing to consider though is like the auction process, right? I think every week is a new Parachain slot availability. Yeah. So considering there's only 21, like including the completed and the ongoing Parachains on Kusama, most it makes sense, right? Because I think the Kusama network pretty much started this process, I think, about 6 months ago or so. So
yeah,
it makes sense. Like this is all that we see. I guess the speculation is whether or not this process, as it goes on, is going to eventually fill up all 100 that Parachain slots that have been allocated, I guess by the foundation governing organization, right? Like they determined 100 seems like a good starting point for the ecosystem, or maybe they were assuming there'd be more, participation from projects. Who knows, right? You kind of throw a dart somewhere. 100 seems like a good number, but I guess we got to speculate amongst ourselves if the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems don't reach that level. Let's say it caps out around 35. Right? Like this time next year, we hit 35 projects onboarded, and they all have their secured Parachain slots. But then a week goes by, we don't see a new one emerge, right? And then another week goes by, we don't see anything new, right? Like what is that supposed to signal to us? It's like, right? Like, is it really that important to fill all 100, or
Yeah.
By that, by the ecosystem not completing that objective, like, is that like a serious red flag, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
So,
what we're trying to determine is the key performance indicators, right?
yeah.
And I think the only way to really measure the importance and the value that the underlying projects who are using Polkadot are is to determine how many projects are actually onboarding per week for every open Parachain slot. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't remember when Kusama first launched its Crowdloan offerings, but I feel like it's been a number of months. And this doesn't seem like there's a lot of new projects onboarding to Kusama. At least that's what it feels like.
Yeah, you would think, it's pretty expected. Like, once you get past like the first 10 projects, like, those are pretty established. Most of them are providing like some serious technical primitives to the network, right? Like, they're laying the groundwork with a lot of their, I don't know, platform or protocol features. So they're going to get a lot of support. They get ushered into the network pretty easily. Like, once you get beyond that point, which Kusama is beyond that point, now it gets a little more speculative, right? Now it's kind of like an open playground for anybody to kind of like compete for these Parachain slots, right? Because it's a lot less understanding of what it is they're even trying to achieve, right? Just like any Ethereum-based project, right? Like, there is no like onboarding mechanism to get onto Ethereum, right? Like, anybody can mint a token on Uniswap and put out a website and galvanize a community to support it, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess, I don't know, man. Like you said, it's time to step back because we're obviously huge Polkadot. What's the word? Fanboys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, we like it. Like, just from a technical perspective, we see the value of it, the architecture of the governance, and what it is we're seeing here with the Parachain ecosystem. Like, this is totally in our wheelhouse. We like everything we're seeing, but we have history of having this same sentiment in the past for like projects, and ultimately, this feeling just is not appreciated by as many people as we thought it would. Right.
So take us through that.
That's the question that's in my head. Like, are we just in the minority and like it's going to stay that way? Can Polkadot overcome that doubt that I have in my head, right? Just from bad previous experiences,
Yeah. Or maybe we're that early and people don't really recognize the value. The market doesn't recognize the value. Some of these projects do, right? That's why they're onboarding. But take us through your previous experience, right? We've talked about this before with EOS, and you were a big fanboy in EOS back in early 2017, and you had the same bullishness. You had the same confidence in EOS that we kind of have the confidence right now in Polkadot. But EOS ended up not panning out for a number of reasons that we can't really identify. So
yeah, we could get into that weeds of a discussion to try and figure out what it is. But yeah, it's not a singular.
Yeah, it's not a
mistake. Yeah, it's just a conglomeration of just, I don't know, mishaps. But yeah, like the sentiment was there in the sense that there was a clear dilemma in the blockchain space with scalability. Like, everybody knew Ethereum wasn't going to be like the answer to mass adoption, right? If you're going to build a business or any kind of application on blockchain, the scalability has to be considered. So EOS comes out, they propose this whole new delegated proof of stake model, which since that inception, there's been like hundreds of new chains, kind of leveraging the exact same architecture, to create their own ecosystem. So it was obviously a great idea, and they were the first ones to do it.
Yeah.
But, they launched their token, they onboarded the ecosystem. They had this huge fund, just like Polkadot has. I think Polkadot has like $100 million development fund, right? They could just grant, ecosystem contributors this money. So it just feels like everything is primed and ready to go. Like, we're going to see this booming ecosystem flourish from the ground, that guns a-blazing right away. But yeah, in EOS's case, it just did not really happen that way. There were issues with, the collusion, I guess, among like network validators, which some people warned about. There was issues with, I don't know, just project founders not really doing much with the funding they received, and not much funding being allocated just because not enough projects, right? And then that's why I get these flashbacks to EOS by looking at what's going on with Polkadot, right? It just feels like there's not enough projects yet.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if it's because there's just not enough interest. Maybe there's just too much saturation out there, right? There's too many chains, not enough developers to go around.
Yeah.
Right.
Too many platforms.
That could be an issue. Huh?
Too many platforms.
Too many platforms. Yeah. Not enough developers to go around. Maybe it's just too early. There's an educational hurdle that the Polkadot, or community needs to kind of like contribute, maybe like, explaining what it is Polkadot's all about to more developers so they can, participate. I don't know. There's a lot of things, right? Yeah. But I think it's important to step back and like be sensible about what's going on, totally, right? 100%. And not FOMO too hard.
Yeah, no, 100%. And really the technology is sound, right? We think the technology is going to work because it makes sense. All we're doing is trying to be, like you're saying, sensible and trying to understand like what is the actual traction that Polkadot and Kusama are getting from these projects. And it could be very simple. It could be that we're extremely early, or maybe developers are recognizing the value of Polkadot, and the majority of the crypto industry are not developers, right? They're speculators. There's like gamers. There's all kinds of people in the crypto industry, and they're not going to see the value in Polkadot because they're not developers. So it could be that we're just that early, or it could be that 21 projects on Kusama and then eventually on Polkadot is a lot. So
yeah, it's true.
Each one brings their own community, right? Everyone's bullish about Akala and Moonbeam and Clover and all that. So I think this is just a reflection of how early we are into this Polkadot ecosystem. So
yeah, and we covered Akala already, right, in our last video. Yes. Yeah, so I think ultimately what the real metric that developers are interested in, like for them to determine whether or not they're going to allocate their time investment, right? Like their abilities to any ecosystem is, value. Is there value to be created or extracted? Like if I provide some kind of service to the ecosystem, will I receive a return, right? So like you said, maybe 20 is enough, but it's going to be these 20 projects are going to have a ton of burden on their shoulders to kind of like bring in that value, right? So that it encourages new developers to kind of like build on top and expand the network from there. So Akala especially, they're pretty much, they put the whole burden of the whole financial infrastructure of the ecosystem on themselves, right? Like we're the all-in-one DeFi hub.
Yep.
So if Akala fails, the whole damn thing fails, pretty much.
Hey, that's a good signal.
Because it starts from there,
That's a good signal. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you're right. I think Akala being the signal, whether or not, they're able to onboard, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, I think that would be a good very first signal to kind of keep an eye on. But I wanted to break down, like, what is the most important thing for developers in considering when jumping into a platform and its technology. And I think the most important thing for developers that they consider is not only their ROI, basically how much time they're going to spend and how much value they're going to extract, but the only way to determine how much value is how much volume of transactions, volume of activities happening on that network. And because Polkadot is so new, I mean, it's pure speculation. So these projects, it seems to me that these projects have recognized a problem that they saw Polkadot would solve. Like, for example, scaling, or the transactions fees are way too high and Polkadot makes them, pretty much free. And so if they leverage the solutions that Polkadot's bringing, they're speculating that it could mean good business for them. So ultimately, I think all these projects are speculating, and you're right. It's going to be up to the very few to become successful in order for the whole network to be successful. And we've seen this before. We've seen this in like all kinds of industries, like Xbox. Yeah. Xbox would likely not be successful without Halo launching alongside it, right? Like, so, you a lot of platforms really depend on those applications, and it's the same for Polkadot. So So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting that we're able to evaluate these things so early. And yeah, we just kind of wanted to talk about how, the idea of the perspective of being so early and then evaluating the value of the project, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, but I don't see anything to be negative about for the most part. I think this is all like a huge experiment.
Yeah, I think everything's moving along exactly how, what was advertised, for the last year or so.
Yeah.
So everything seems pretty smooth. The thing I like, I'm in favor of this model of community onboarding and governance, contribution to determining, whether or not these projects, AKA ecosystem, actors and contributors are worthy to be, given such a prominent position within the ecosystem, right? A Parachain slot, in one of the earliest ones, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I like seeing it.
And it's pretty smart too, because if you think about it, the next one to onboard onto Kusama is going to be this project called Genshiro. And right now it has 30% of the tokens allocated for this Parachain slot. So every single week, there's going to be a project onboarded. It's going to be more interesting when this list of ongoing projects dwindles down to near zero. And if this doesn't replenish, then, this is another early signal about, the difficulty of onboarding right onto a chain. Maybe not enough people are in the DOT ecosystem to start supporting other projects that are smaller than these projects that are ongoing. So, man, there's so many ways to speculate and kind of predict, what could happen. But yeah, I mean, that's why we do this, because we like to break down these projects and see, what could happen. Yeah.
Totally. So this is not to say we're anything really. We're just kind of spitballing as you should, and now analyzing things, taking that step back, looking at, from an overview perspective, what's actually happening. And we're not demotivated in any sense or feel like, oh man, rug pull imminent. That's not what we're saying. We're still going to cover new projects within the Polkadot ecosystem because it is interesting to see whether or not this will work in the long term. And just because there were examples in the past of, ecosystems with tons of hype and that did not end up, following through for whatever reasons, just doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, again. But it's just, you want to revisit those, points in history just for perspective and just don't go all in on stuff.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
You never know. You can be severely disappointed by doing that,
Yeah, and really this conversation spawned because we wanted to talk about Engine, right? Their Crowdloan is live, and if you click on this link, Americans can't participate. But besides that, the whole idea of Engine was to create a specific NFT highway that completely reduces the fees of minting and selling NFTs for developers, right? So we evaluated this project, and this would be like a good platform for MetaZone to leverage to exist on Polkadot. So I know for a fact Engine is solving problems. I know that because of Engine being on Polkadot, it's solving their own problems. So there's a lot of potential here in just the overall Polkadot ecosystem. And sort of we were evaluating Engine and them being on Polkadot, what does that actually mean for developers? And then we started to compare what's going on in Polkadot, with what was happening with Kusama, and now we're here. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to take a step back and kind of evaluate everything. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think on the next video, we should do a deep dive on Affinity, which is Engine's, highway solution, more NFT purpose blockchain, right, on Polkadot.
The first one on Polkadot.
Say what?
It's the first one on Polkadot.
Yeah, so we should definitely do a deep dive, considering we're deeply ingrained in the NFT ecosystem, and they've been, kind of been public about, they seem to be leaning more towards this metaverse narrative, which, a lot of projects are now because it's starting to become prevalent in the space. So it's just marketing at this point, but it'd be good to be able to identify exactly what it is they're going to contribute to the metaverse, right?
Yep.
So that's up to us to figure out, and we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, that'll be for the next video. All right, guys. So that's been Polkadot taking a step back, evaluating everything. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner and also at MetaZone.io. And we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.